Good morning. Good morning. It's Elder Mike from Romans 8:28 Publishing. Just coming with a brief message. I'm on vacation right now, and I kind of love getting on vacation because when you get away from the day-to-day grind, God can really speak to you a little bit more, and He always does when I'm away. And so He's given me a couple little messages, just short ones here, on why do we have so much trouble in life? Even we love God, we love Jesus. Why do trouble still come our way? So we're going to look at a couple of those right now. Today we're looking at why does He allow the trials of life to come our way? Why does He allow these dangerous, perilous situations that we get into come our way? You know, what's the possible benefit of being in a situation that's dangerous, whether it's spiritually dangerous, whether it's, emotionally dangerous, whether it's physically dangerous? What could the possible benefit be of allowing us to fall into these situations where we feel we're at jeopardy, where we're at risk, and those things that sometimes we complain, God, get me out of it. God, why'd you let me get into it? And we're going to come today from the book of Exodus. Why does God allow us to end up in these perilous situations? And we're going to see we're coming from Exodus chapter 14, that famous story of the parting of the Red Sea. And there's some interesting things in here we're just going to touch on real quickly. As we start at verse 1, it says, "Then the Lord said to Moses, 'Tell the Israelites to turn back and encamp near Pi-haroth, near Migdal and the sea. They are to encamp by the sea directly opposite Baal-Zephon.'" And so, all right, so here we have, first of all, He didn't just allow them to end up where they ended up. He actually directed to where they ended up that was going to be the perilous situation. He told them to camp by the sea. But then it gets even more as we go deeper. It says, "Pharaoh will think the Israelites are wandering around the land in confusion, hemmed in by the desert. And I will harden Pharaoh's heart, and he will pursue them. But I will gain glory for myself through Pharaoh and all his army, and the Egyptians will know that I am the Lord." So the Israelites did this. So not only did He tell them to camp by the sea, where they would have the sea at their back, but He also said, you know what? And I know that Pharaoh is going to come after you because he thinks that you're lost, and he thinks he can capitalize on that. So here we see that God is putting them in a situation where He knows that they're going to have the sea at their back and an army racing toward them. And predictably, what do the Israelite people do? They're complaining, "Geez, Moses, why did you allow us here? Weren't there any graves in Egypt to bury us in? You had to bring us out to the desert to have us slaughtered like lambs." And they're complaining, and they're wondering, why are we in this situation? Just like we do when we're in that dangerous situation. Why do I have to be in this situation, right? And Moses answered the people, this is in verse 13, "Do not be afraid, stand firm, and you will see the deliverance the Lord will bring you today. The Egyptians you see today, you will never see again. The Lord will fight for you. You need only be still." So we see here this situation, and we can say, and we know what happened next, right? That Moses extended the staff over the sea. The pillar of cloud of God came around and kind of held off the Egyptians until they crossed the sea. And then as the Egyptians are chasing them through the sea, the walls of the water cave in around them. And we go, yeah, but you know what? Yeah, that's the way it worked out. And great that God made a way out, but why do you have to make it so difficult? Why did they have to worry? Why did they have to fear? And I just want to encourage you in this, for when you face these things, that nothing God does is wasted, and there is a purpose to it. He could have easily led them clean, free, out of the desert without any kind of fear, without any kind of pursuit from Pharaoh, but there was a reason even in the fact that He allowed them to be pursued, and He allowed that scene at the Red Sea to occur. Because see, what happens is 40 years later, when the Israelites are ready to enter the Promised Land, we're going to see here that what happens is Joshua's getting ready to enter the Promised Land. He sends in some spies, and they end up at the house of a prostitute named Rahab. It says this is in Joshua chapter 2, verse 1 says, "Then Joshua, son of Nun, secretly sent 2 spies from Shittim. 'Go look over the land,' he said, 'especially Jericho.' So they went and entered the house of a prostitute named Rahab and stayed there." So here they are, and then we see that the king is knocking on the door. I heard there's some spies in there. She hides the spies up on the roof, and then she tells the king, "Oh yeah, they went down outside the wall," and the king sends people to chase after them. And then Rahab goes up onto the roof to speak with the spies, and we're going to hear what she says to the spies, and this is going to shed a little light on why the perilous situations that God allows us to get ourselves into. And it says, "Before the spies lay down for the night, She went up on the roof and said to them, I know that the Lord has given you this land, and that a great fear of you has fallen on us, so that all who live in this country are melting in fear because of you. So here the people of the land have heard of the power and what God has done for the Israelites. And before the Israelites even enter the land, they're already terrified. But let's look at what specifically are they so terrified about? What have they heard? And it says, we have heard how the Lord dried up the water of the Red Sea for you when you came out of Egypt, and what you did to Sihon and Og, the two kings of the Amorites. I love east of the Jordan, whom you completely destroyed. So here, what's the first thing she says when she talks about how terrified these people are of the Israelites? It was that parting of the Red Sea 40 years before. So here it is 40 years later, and think about, how did they defeat Jericho? They put priests with horns marching and leading the people around the walls of Jericho, and nobody in Jericho comes out to fight. They don't even shoot an arrow from the wall of Jericho at this army just marching around crazy, getting ready to blow horns. There's no attack, there's no defense. Why? Because the people have already melted in fear because of that thing that happened 40 years before. That's right, the parting of the Red Sea. Why'd they have to go through it? So that that enemy that they faced 40 years later would be defeated before they even had to cast a shot, draw a sword, pull out a bow. That's right, that's why God allows us to go through it. Because we see what we're in, God sees what's coming 2 months, 5 years, 40 years down the line. And he's got you in that situation. Why? To prepare you for that battle that's coming. So you be encouraged. If you're not going through something now, you're going to someday. And just when you go through, remember, there's something coming after it that God's getting ready for you. There's an enemy coming after it that God is using that thing to defeat that enemy. So God bless you. Have a blessed day, and know that God is working everything for your good.